From Washington to the warfront, power is shifting, fast. Peace talks teeter on the edge, American institutions are being dismantled, and a blackout plunges Puerto Rico into darkness once again. As global alliances realign and domestic tensions rise, the decisions made this week could ripple for years to come. This is your full global update. No headlines, no cutaways, just the stories that matter, told straight through. Let's dive in. The United States is putting pressure on Russia and Ukraine to finalize a peace deal, and the clock is ticking. President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio say U.S. involvement could be scrapped if clear progress isn't made soon. After talks in Paris, Rubio said a decision should come in a matter of days, warning that Washington won't wait around indefinitely. Trump echoed that sentiment, signaling the U.S. might walk away entirely if negotiations stall. While Ukraine described the meetings as constructive, the Kremlin acknowledged only limited progress, saying conversations with Washington remain tough. Still, there's a glimmer of momentum. A follow-up meeting is planned in London, where a temporary 30-day ceasefire may be on the table. Vice President J.D. Vance, meeting separately in Rome, remains optimistic about a breakthrough. Trump continues to play hardball, threatening to cut military aid to Ukraine or hit Russia with more sanctions if talks drag on. But sticking points remain. Moscow demands that Ukraine abandon NATO ambitions, cede 4 occupied regions, and reduce the size of its military, terms Kiev has firmly rejected. Meanwhile, back home, Trump's administration is moving fast to dismantle key government institutions. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is about to lose nearly 90% of its workforce. Roughly 1,500 employees received layoff notices this week. Acting Director Russell Vought said the cuts are designed to restructure the agency and align it with new priorities. The CFPB was born out of the 2008 financial crisis and has long been a thorn in the side of big banks and Wall Street. Critics, including Elon Musk and many Republican lawmakers, argue it's gone too far in regulating financial institutions. Supporters say gutting the agency will leave consumers vulnerable. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a vocal champion of the Bureau, called the move a betrayal. With just 200 staffers expected to remain, the CFPB's future is now uncertain. In a related move, the Trump administration is also dismantling the IRS's Direct File program. Internal documents reveal plans to shut it down for the 2026 tax season. The program, a Biden-era initiative, allowed Americans to file taxes for free directly through the IRS. It had been gaining traction, with over 140,000 returns processed last year. Critics said it duplicated existing services, but supporters saw it as a rare, cost-free option for taxpayers. Senator Warren accused Trump and Musk of protecting major tax prep companies like Intuit, which applauded the program's likely demise. Code for America, which helped run Direct File, called the move a step backward for public trust. Elsewhere, deportation policies are once again under fire. Senator Chris Van Hollen traveled to El Salvador this week to meet Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a man deported by the Trump administration despite a court order that should have kept him in the U.S. Van Hollen was denied access to the prison but eventually met with Abrego Garcia privately. Garcia was living in Maryland when he was deported earlier this year in what ICE now describes as an administrative error. The Trump administration has refused to bring him back, alleging, without evidence, that he's tied to gang activity. A federal appeals court blasted the administration's handling of the case as shocking. Judge J. Harvey Wilkinson wrote that he still hopes the rule of law means something to the executive branch. When asked whether Garcia deserved due process, Trump deferred to legal counsel. In the halls of Congress, Representative Patrick Harrigan and General Christopher Cavoli clashed over drone warfare in Ukraine. Harrigan, a former Green Beret, claimed FPV drones are responsible for 80% of Russian battlefield deaths. Cavoli acknowledged that drones account for well over half, though precise numbers are difficult to confirm. Harrigan argued that U.S. drone production is falling behind and urged immediate investment in defense manufacturing. Meanwhile, President Trump is considering removing Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. He's frustrated over high interest rates and accused Powell of playing politics. "If I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast," Trump said. Legally, Powell can't be fired without cause, and his term runs through 2026, but that may change. A pending Supreme Court case could give the president new power to dismiss leaders of independent agencies. Powell says rate hikes are needed amid economic uncertainty, much of it stemming from Trump's new import tariffs. The president insists inflation is under control. On the campaign front, David Hogg's political action group, Leaders We Deserve, is ramping up efforts to oust incumbent Democrats in safe seats. Backed by $20 million in new funds, the group is supporting young challengers focused on issues like gun violence and housing. Hogg says it's not about age, but about results. Targets include Reps Brad Sherman and even a symbolic challenge to Reps Nancy Pelosi, though Hogg says Pelosi remains effective and isn't a main focus. Democratic leaders are walking a tightrope. DCC Chair Susan Delben warned that internal divisions could distract from the party's broader mission of flipping competitive districts. Hogg emphasized his group isn't targeting every safe seat, only those where he believes lawmakers haven't pushed back hard enough against Trump. Turning overseas, Iran held a sweeping military parade this week, showcasing missiles, drones, and defense systems, including Russian-made technology. The parade coincided with tense nuclear negotiations between Iran and the U.S. President Masoud Pezeshkian described Iran as a regional power and credited the country's military strength with maintaining national security. China and Russia had military officials seated beside Iran's president, a sign of quiet cooperation as the three nations navigate the nuclear talks. The U.S. wants Iran to limit enrichment, while Israel is demanding full denuclearization. Trump's team appears open to compromise, favoring reduced enrichment over total dismantlement, a position that has drawn both hope and criticism. In Puerto Rico, residents are once again dealing with a massive island-wide blackout. Power was cut to all 1.4 million customers on Wednesday after a cascade of system failures. The outage started with a failure in the electrical protection system and was made worse by overgrown vegetation near a critical line. Luma Energy, the company running Puerto Rico's privatized grid, says the full cause is still under investigation. As of now, about 40% of customers remain without electricity. Governor Jennifer Gonzalez Colon called the situation unacceptable. Luma expects to restore power to 90% of users within 72 hours, but public anger is mounting. Some are calling for Luma's contract to be revoked. Others blame decades of U.S. neglect. Puerto Ricans, who are American citizens, can't vote in presidential elections and lack full representation in Congress, despite repeated calls for statehood. In other international developments, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with Elon Musk to discuss collaboration in tech and innovation. No firm agreements were announced, but the meeting reflects growing interest in cross-border tech cooperation. And in a bold environmental shift, the Trump administration said it will expand offshore oil drilling, possibly including in the Arctic. The move scraps a Biden-era plan that had imposed historic limits on new drilling sites. The administration says the change reflects a new energy strategy aimed at boosting domestic production. Finally, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced new visa restrictions for at least 250 Nicaraguan officials, citing ongoing human rights abuses under the country's dual leadership, co-presidents Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo. The sanctions aim to hold the regime accountable for widespread crackdowns on dissent. That's all for tonight's news update. Thank you for joining us. We'll continue to monitor these stories and bring you the latest developments. Stay safe, stay informed, and have a good night. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update.